A teenage girl stood tied to a wooden stake in the center of a crowded marketplace. Soldiers surrounded her. Priests whispered prayers. Thousands of people watched in silence as the flames were prepared. Her crime? She claimed that heaven had chosen her to save France. Many believed they were witnessing the death of a dangerous heretic, but history would remember her very differently. Her name was Joan of Arc. There are moments in history when the fate of an entire nation seems to hang by a thread. In the early 15th century, that moment arrived for France. Cities were falling. Villages burned as armies marched across the countryside, and many people began to fear that the kingdom itself might soon disappear. For years, the war between France and England had devastated the land. Yet salvation would not come from a powerful king or a legendary general. Instead, it came from the most unlikely person imaginable. From a small rural village stepped a teenage girl, poor, unknown, and completely untrained in war. She made a claim so astonishing that many people believe she had lost her mind. She said heaven had chosen her to save France. Within months, she would ride beside soldiers in a battle. Within a few years, she would stand before judges accused of heresy and witchcraft. And before her life ended in flames, she would become one of the most extraordinary legends the world has ever known. This is the remarkable story of Joan of Arc. In the early 15th century, the Kingdom of France was collapsing under the crushing weight of the 100 Years' War. For generations, the conflict between France and England had drained the land of its strength. Farms had been destroyed. Entire villages had vanished into smoke and ashes. Soldiers marched endlessly across battlefields soaked in blood. And with each passing year, the English armies pushed deeper into French territory, capturing cities and tightening their grip on the country. Many believed it was only a matter of time before France itself disappeared. The French crown was weak, divided, and surrounded by enemies. Even those who still believed in victory were losing hope. The once proud kingdom seemed destined to fall. Yet far from the war, in a quiet rural village called Domremy, life followed a very different rhythm. Here, fields stretched beneath open skies, and farmers worked from sunrise to sunset, hoping the distant sounds of war would never reach their homes. Among the villagers lived a girl named Joan. She was the daughter of a farmer, raised in a modest home, surrounded by the simple routines of village life. No one looking at her would have imagined that history was about to change. Joan had never received military training. She had never stepped inside a royal court. She had never commanded soldiers or studied the strategies of war. She was simply a young girl with a quiet faith and a determined spirit. But one afternoon, when Joan was about 13 years old, something happened that would change her life forever. She was walking near the fields outside her village when a strange sound broke the silence. At first, she thought it was only the wind moving through the trees. Then she heard it again, a voice, clear, calm, and calling her by name. Joan stopped in fear, looking around the empty countryside. Yet the voice continued speaking. Years later, Joan would say these voices belonged to heavenly messengers, saints sent by God with a divine command. France must be saved, and she had been chosen to save it. Again and again, over days, weeks, and months, the mysterious voice continued speaking to her. Joan later explained that the voices were heavenly messengers, saints sent by God with a sacred mission. They revealed a remarkable truth to her. France was in peril, and she had been chosen to play a key role in its salvation. For a young peasant girl, such a claim sounded impossible, even dangerous. When Joan first shared her visions, many people dismissed her words. Some laughed, others shook their heads in disbelief. But there was something unusual about her conviction. She spoke not with confusion, but with absolute certainty. As time passed, Joan's sense of mission only grew stronger. Finally, she made a decision that stunned everyone around her. She would travel across the war-torn country and seek an audience with the man who was supposed to become King of France. It was a journey filled with danger. Enemy patrols roamed the countryside, and the roads were far from safe. Yet, somehow, the determined young girl managed to reach the royal court. When she arrived, the nobles and advisors were skeptical. To them, Joan was nothing more than a peasant claiming to hear voices from heaven. But something unexpected happened when she finally spoke. Joan addressed the future king with such calm confidence that many in the court fell silent. She spoke of divine guidance, of victory, and of a future where France would rise again. Her faith was so intense that even hardened soldiers began to wonder whether there might be something extraordinary about this young girl. After weeks of questioning and debate, the impossible occurred. Joan was given armor. She was given a banner. And most astonishing of all, she was allowed to accompany French forces into battle. What followed shocked everyone. Wherever Joan appeared, the spirit of the army seemed to transform. Soldiers who had once fought with fear now believed that victory was possible. Her presence ignited hope among troops who had almost forgotten what hope felt like. Soon Joan marched toward one of the most important battlegrounds of the war, the besieged city of Orléans. For months, English forces had surrounded the city with powerful defenses. Many believed its fall was inevitable. When Joan arrived, the French soldiers were exhausted and discouraged. Yet the young girl in armor rode among them carrying a white banner. She spoke not like a general, but with calm and unshakable faith. "Do not be afraid," she told them. "God fights with us." Then the battle began. Arrows filled the air. Cannons thundered against the city walls. Soldiers clashed in brutal combat around the English fortifications. Again and again Joan rode forward through the chaos, her banner raised high. Wherever she appeared, the French soldiers surged forward with renewed courage. Slowly, the impossible began to happen. The English defenses started to break. After months of siege, the city of Orléans was finally freed. Across Europe, people struggled to believe the news. A teenage peasant girl had helped change the course of the war. To the people of France, Joan of Arc became a symbol of divine favor. Crowds gathered wherever she traveled. Many believed they were witnessing a miracle, but not everyone celebrated her success. Some powerful figures began to fear the influence of the young warrior, who inspired both soldiers and ordinary people alike. In quiet chambers and shadowed halls, doubts and suspicions about her divine mission slowly began to grow. In the shadows of the royal court, whispers began to spread. Some powerful men were uneasy about Joan's growing influence. Others feared the mysterious voices she claimed to hear. Was she truly guided by heaven, or was something far more dangerous at work? The tension continued to grow as Joan of Arc led more campaigns and helped secure further victories for France. Yet the war was far from over, and fate would soon take a darker turn. Enemies watched her every move, plotting to undo her miracles, while whispers of betrayal and conspiracy spread through both courts and battlefields. During a military operation in 1430, Joan of Arc was captured by enemy forces. Surrounded and outnumbered, the young warrior found herself suddenly powerless, her fate resting in the hands of those who wished to see her destroyed. Instead of being treated as an ordinary prisoner of war, she was handed over to authorities determined to destroy her reputation. A trial was organized, not simply to judge her actions, but to prove that she had deceived the world. Inside a cold courtroom, Joan faced powerful judges, scholars, and church officials. They questioned her relentlessly, searching for contradictions in her story. They demanded she deny the voices. They accused her of heresy. They tried to break her spirit. But the young girl who had once faced armies refused to surrender her beliefs. Despite months of interrogation and imprisonment, Joan remained firm in her conviction that her mission had come from God. Her courage amazed even some of those who judged her. Yet the outcome of the trial seemed predetermined. In 1431, the court delivered its final judgment. Joan of Arc was declared guilty. The punishment was death. On a cold morning in the city of Rouen, a large crowd gathered in the marketplace. Soldiers surrounded a wooden platform where a tall stake had been prepared. Many in the crowd had once believed Joan was chosen by heaven. Now, they watched in silence as the young woman was led forward in chains. Even in that moment, she refused to deny the voices that had guided her. As the flames began to rise, smoke drifted into the gray sky. Some people wept openly. Others fell to their knees in prayer. They believed they were witnessing the end of her story. But history would remember it very differently. Now they watched in stunned silence as the young woman was led forward in chains. As the flames began to rise, smoke curled into the gray morning sky. Some people wept openly. Others fell to their knees in prayer. They believed they were witnessing the tragic end of a remarkable life. But time would record it in another way. But in truth, it was only the beginning of a legend. Because in the years that followed, people began to question the trial that had condemned her. Stories of her courage, visions, and unshakable faith spread far beyond France, inspiring generations to see her not as a criminal, but as a hero betrayed by fear and politics. Witnesses spoke out, records were re-examined, and gradually, the world began to see Joan of Arc not as a criminal, but as a hero who had been betrayed. Her story became a symbol of justice reclaimed, a reminder that truth and courage can endure even when power turns against them. Centuries later, the world remembers Joan of Arc not as a girl who perished in flames, but as a symbol of courage, faith, and unyielding determination. Her story inspires those who dare to believe that one person can change the course of history. The villages she walked, the armies she led, and the courts that judged her all whisper her name. She became more than a warrior. She became immortal, a testament to the extraordinary power of a single determined soul. The girl from Domremy, who dared to challenge kings and armies, lives on, not only in history books, but in the hearts of all who dare to hope. Her courage shows us that even the smallest voice can echo across time, that faith can overcome fear, and that legends are born from those who refuse to surrender. The flames may have ended her life, but they could never burn her spirit, her story, or the inspiration she leaves for every generation. If you were inspired by this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because stories like Joan's are meant to be passed on, to remind the world that courage and belief can truly change history.